Oh, welcome to Heek Sunt Draconis. Here be dragons. I felt like doing a follow-up video as to why pigeons make great pets and go into tips and tricks for pigeon owners or future slaves of pigeons. Pigeons are quite different from other birds, so just because you have had birds in the past doesn't mean you are really ready for a pigeon. So, there we go. Tip number 1. Be sure to get a wireless keyboard with an easy-to-reach on and off button, as pigeons are obsessed with keyboards. And they will peck at them. They'll dance on them, and when possible, they'll destroy them. I had an $80 keyboard destroyed after a Cessna here. Took a bath, and then decided to dry off on top of the keyboard. I then went and bought like an over $200 keyboard. And I love it, but she actually managed to pull off a key within the first hour. It actually broke a clip. It cost me like $30 just to buy a replacement button. So beware. Now, when it comes to pigeons, treats are key. Pigeons operate on bribes at all times. However, remember that pigeons don't have sharp or powerful beaks, so everything you give them needs to fit in their mouth. So be sure to cut up or crush up all the food. And as far as treats, anything's good. Though from experience, pigeons do love flour tortillas, chopped up finely, sunflower seeds, unsalted always, and believe this or not, cheese Doritos and corn chips. She prefers cheese Doritos. Now, however, crush them up a lot, as the sharp edges can hurt their crops. And only give them a really small amount. And I mean a really small amount, and only when you have to bribe them. So, as far as food, one thing to know is that pigeons cannot keep food in a bowl. I don't know why, but I've yet to find a pigeon that won't throw all their food all over the place as soon as possible. Now, they are picky eaters, so they do go digging through it. And you can reduce this by using special bowls. I'm still trying to come up with one, though. You need something with really high walls around it and just a slot for the pigeon's head. Basically, so when they start throwing stuff, it just hits the side and it won't go over the edge. Otherwise, you're going to have major messes everywhere, as I found. Now, I personally prefer to have food left out at all times. Others prefer just to feed when they need to. It's really just up to you. And now, pigeons are foragers. So they prefer to find food wherever. And you will catch them on the floor and in strange locations, always picking things up. And always keep areas where pigeons can reach clean of anything that can fit in their mouth. I had one instance where I was working on an electronics project, and I stripped off a lot of wires. And a few pieces of wire had actually fallen on the floor. And I didn't see them right away. Not even half an hour later, my pigeon started throwing up a couple little pieces of bright red wire. She was fine. It was really small, thin wire, and luckily they're able to throw up things that they can't digest, but never, you don't want to test it. And it was really a wake-up call. I didn't even know that she had been on the floor. And then the pigeons will also get into really weird areas, unlike other birds. In Cessna here, she isn't caged, so I do have a special scenario. And if you do have an uncaged pigeon, you need to realize that they will get everywhere. I've come home and not been able to find her at all, and then found her under the bed, or on a couple occasions inside like a drawer or on a shelf behind items. How she got there, I have no idea. I actually found her inside of a paper bag once, like paper bag on the floor in the bag. She must have flown and landed right into it, and she was stuck in the bag. Now, since they are foragers, I do like to put some food kind of spread around. Hey, if that makes any sense. Like I'll put some in her play area. I put a little food like in her carrier, and also on like a little shelf that she stands at. So it's just sort of little dabs of food all over the place. That kind of keeps her looking around and stuff. Plus, there's always food available. Now, as far as the actual food, the best thing to do is order pigeon feed online. I've been through all different ways of getting food, and this is really the best way, or the pellets. But normal pigeon feed is actually pretty cheap, like well under $40 for a 50-pound bag. Though you need to be sure you freeze it. I learned this the hard way. Okay, that otherwise you're gonna have like little bugs that come in the feed, and they will very quickly just infest and destroy the food. Now the pigeons themselves don't really have an issue with this. It's just more protein for them. But still, it's I didn't really like it. Now, I'd like to add, as far as adding things to the food, I like to add in unsalted sunflower seeds. Always shelled. because they cannot like shell a seed at all. I also like to buy split peas and popcorn. Now see if they will eat the popcorn first. If not, then don't give it to them. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. Also, avoid cracked corn because that can hurt their crop also. Another thing that they do love are Spanish red peanuts, but not really the ones from the store. You actually need to buy these from pigeon supply stores, and you can find them because they're raw, unsalted, and they are small enough for them to eat. So I highly recommend that. Cessna used to love them last time I had them, and I'm going to have to get more. And finally, another love of my bird is spray millet. It's really cheap. It's just a few dollars. And you can hang them up, and they can sit there and play and peck at them for hours. And she loves them. She will just lay down and just start eating it almost like a piece of corn. She just sits there and goes up and down it. It's hilarious. And she does that for hours. She loves it. Now, some people say seeds can get really small and get stuck in their nostril and stuff. I've never had an issue with that. So that's going to be up to you. Now, one big question I get asked about is grit. And here's my view. If the pigeon will eat grit, then let them have it. Don't use just like rocks and stuff. Because now pigeons, especially female pigeons, need a lot of calcium for the eggs they make. So you want grit from like oyster shells and stuff. So things that have a lot of calcium in it. The grit I use is actually crushed oyster shell, and it's got some granite in it also. That way she gets the calcium she needs. Now, here's the issue that I had is that she is obsessed with grit. Like, she'll just keep eating it nonstop. So I have to put out just a small amount, because when I first started giving it to her, she actually ate so much that she literally just threw it up. You know, so I literally just give it a pinch like once a week, and it works out fine. I also recommend you buy multivitamins for your bird for the same reasons as grit. And also, when you get multivitamin, order a 4-in-1 antibiotic because while you hope your pigeon never gets sick, it's best to have it on hand for when it does happen, if it does happen. Now, water. Pigeons love taking baths, and they do it randomly. So I actually use like a glass, like Pyrex baking sheet or baking dish, and I fill that up with water every day. It's big enough for her to just climb into anything she wants and take a bath. Now, here's a trick. Also, keep some apple cider vinegar around at all times. And whenever they seem like they might be sick or something, or have like watery stools, you just pour the catful in the water. It's really good for them, and it's almost like one of those cure-alls that actually really seems to work. I try not to always have it in the water. I don't know how acidic it is, how much it might actually affect their crop and stuff, so I give it to her when I feel she needs it. But it also helps keep the water fresh. Now, as far as toys and stuff, mirrors. Mirrors are a pigeon's best friend. They love mirrors. And it's almost like the only toy they need. They'll sit in front of them for hours. I have a mix of different mirrors. I actually keep one mirror up on my wall right above the medicine cabinet, so she can stand on the medicine cabinet and just look into the mirror. She's got mirrors in her crate. She's got mirrors behind me in her little play area. She's got a big giant mirror that she stands in front of. And they love them. And then other types of toys, there's not many really for a pigeon, but like hanging rattles or like a ball with a bell, you know what I'm talking about. You can even make them, and they love these things. Actually, something real successful I've had luck with is taking like a little plastic bottle and putting like metal balls inside of it. I get them out like old bearings and stuff, but anything that makes a rattle. Then you put that into a like an old sock and tie it off and hang it up. And if you keep it just off like the bottom of the cage or wherever they're at, they love to like climb under it and just lay there with it like sitting on top of their head. I've had 2 pigeons do this. And then other times they'll just randomly attack it. So they have something to play with, they have something to cuddle with when they want to. You know, and they don't have to bother you nonstop. Now, poop. So poop is a fact of life with all animals. Well, many can be trained, including pigeons here. Well, it's not the easiest thing. It can be done. And I've noticed that pigeons like to use the same spot most of the time. And normally it's somewhere high. And you can reinforce this with treats and simple nudges to keep them off areas where they shouldn't be. And then once you figure out where they're always at, you put a garbage bag under the area they go at. And normally I catch her. I've also seen people use a basket that has like a handle in the middle. And they let the bird like stand on that most of the time. That becomes like its spot. And then when it does go, it just boop right into the basket. So you're gonna have to find the best method for your bird, but it is possible to train them. You just have to spend a lot of time doing it. Now, one thing I have encountered with several pigeons is watery stools. This doesn't mean diarrhea. It's just a lot of clear liquid. And this is normal for pigeons. Like all birds, they have like a dual-use hole. It's a cloaca. Now, sometimes it can become a problem, especially for cleanup. And the cure here is simple. The more water a bird drinks, the more they're going to urinate. And sometimes birds are just thirsty, and other times they're just hungry and they try and fill themselves up with water. This happens a lot with young birds. The easiest fix is to give them a treat that absorbs water, such as rice or breads and crackers. I prefer rice and finely chopped up tortillas, though corn would also work. Just get them to eat more food, and it generally fixes the issue quite fast. And that way, if it doesn't fix it, then you know there's something else going on, and you can get them to a vet. This is also a time when apple cider vinegar comes in really well in the water. Just a capful in the water tends to help with this a lot. You can also give them a little bit of Greek yogurt, just for the probiotics. Now, nesting. If you have a female pigeon, you're going to eventually catch on when they're about to nest, just by their behavior. And I can tell when she's about to lay an egg by the way that she gets obsessively cuddly. Like she forces herself close to me no matter what. So you'll need a nest. Most people use a dog food bowl. I printed one with my 3D printer. Though I've since moved on to using a sheet that I formed in like a bowl shape. And then you can cut some like paper into like thin, like, just real thin strips that they'll use for nesting material. And it also works as a toy. Another thing I do when she's nesting is I'll take pieces of wire that I don't use anymore and just tie them off to things. And she will stand there and just pull on the wire and play with it, like she's looking for nesting material. And it keeps her occupied for a while. Once they do lay an egg, you want to replace it as soon as possible with a fake plastic egg. In fact, replace it with 2 eggs. Because if you remove the egg, they'll just make another. And they normally do lay 2, so if you add 2 eggs, they might not make the second egg. And I've had this work actually a lot of the times. I've even stopped her from even having eggs in the first place, like giving her a plastic egg like a day or 2 before she should be laying a normal egg. So why stop them from having eggs? Well, it uses up a lot of calcium. And pigeons can become egg-bound, meaning the egg gets stuck. And it usually doesn't turn out well. And since she is my best friend, I want her to be as healthy as possible. I don't want to take any chances. And I will add a link in here to the eggs that I use. They're plastic from Amazon. They weigh the same as a real egg. And she's never been able to tell the difference. Now, as far as taming, don't expect your pigeon to pop up and love you right away, especially if it's a young bird and if it's male. Female pigeons are much more cuddly. And I've gotten my pigeons very young. I actually buy them as squab at meat markets. So they haven't even left the nest yet, which means I've had to hand feed them. Regardless, for the first 4 to 6 months, they're very standoffish. And don't force them to be your buddy. Give them food and stuff and leave them alone for the most part. Once they hit like that mating age, roughly 4 to 6 months old, they're going to change. And if you're the only other living thing around, well, you just became your bird's mate. As far as a pigeon is concerned, and this isn't like a human-pet relationship. This is husband and wife. Like, as far as that bird's concerned, you're the husband. So that also means that your bird might be very protective of you. And if you're going to have to acclimate your bird to new people or a spouse or something. So think about that first also. They also go through mood swings, as you've probably seen from my other videos, and it's expected. You'll learn when and, how long they last. And no, your bird doesn't hate you when they start biting you. That's just how the whole mating process goes and stuff. So just be prepared for it. And just know that they can get really persistent too when it comes to cuddling. You can find yourself with a pigeon on your head, just cuddling, like cooing in your ear at all times, like nonstop. And no matter how much you try to get them to stop, they won't. They just keep coming back right on your head. It can get annoying, but, we love them anyways. Now, as far as caging, I don't cage, or I've said that many times. I don't think I really could. It just doesn't feel right. But I have a very small studio, and I live alone, and it's pigeon-proofed. So if I had a larger house or something, I'd probably limit her to a bird or like most people do, use a large aviary. Um, some people use dog crates, and you have to acclimate your bird to it, but I don't really, you know, you don't want to keep them there long term. Like, you keep them in there overnight and then let them out in the day. So don't think about buying a pigeon and just keeping them caged all the time unless you get a large aviary where they can fly and stuff. Because they really do, need to stretch their wings and flap them and stuff. Like, a lot of times when she wakes up, she goes and does what we call the helicopter. She just starts flapping her wings and almost like hovers for a bit. Now, you do need to provide them with safe spots. So places that are theirs. I use like a wire shelving unit that I've blocked off on some areas that she kind of calls home. And then I also have a carrier set up that she can get into at all times. It's like hanging on a hook and somewhere that she can just fly into and go in. It's got mirrors inside and some toys and food in it. And it makes it easier for when I do have to lock her up. She doesn't throw a fit about it. It's her spot. So when I do have to put it into it, she feels safe. Now, clothing and leashes. Pigeon pants or pigeon diapers are a godsend, but they are not a full-time solution. They're good for when you take your bird somewhere you don't want accidents to happen. However, you can't use them all the time because obviously it builds up. I shouldn't have to say that, but some people. So use them sparingly when you need to. Otherwise, work on training your bird or finding other alternatives. As far as leashes, absolutely. This gives you the ability to have the bird out cage-free while keeping them safe and actually taking them places. Now, you have to be very careful with the type you get. Some can hurt the bird or make it really easy for them to escape from. And I only recommend the aviator harness. They're high quality and they work really well. They're very easy to use also. But you need to use them a lot and acclimate your bird to them. Don't think you can just throw it on your bird and be ready to go, because they do not like them at first. And they will stand there and walk weird and it'll fall over and stuff. And it'll take a couple days of getting used to it normally. Some birds just fall right into it. Some don't. Now, wing clipping. Never. Because if your bird gets loose, it's going to be in a lot of trouble. However, here's the thing. Even after substantial clipping, a lot of birds can still fly. But it takes lots of energy. Meaning, if they do get escaped and they do have to fly, they're going to wear themselves out really fast. And you might think that you're keeping your bird safe by stopping them from flying, but you aren't. They can get hurt when they fall. A lot of times they'll split open like the breastbone area when they fall and hit the floor. And they'll be absolutely no match for predators. And it can also cause a lot of health issues. So, if you have a bird and you need to actually stop it from flying for a particular reason, maybe it's been injured or something, or the area is just very unsafe where they're at temporarily, you can put a rubber band around just like the last 4 of the flight feathers. These ones right here that stick out, just these right here, you just put a rubber band over this. But you only do that in extreme situations for as small amount of time as possible. Okay? Other than that, you should never do it, because if they do get loose, then it's just as bad. But it does be actually clipping them. And, like I said, really the only time you want to do this is they've hurt themselves. You need to stop them from actually flying, a sprained wing or something. Now, cleaning products. This is a biggie, because birds have very sensitive respiratory systems. And they don't really breathe like you and me. They have a whole different way of breathing. So they're very sensitive to odors and chemicals. So it's very important that you don't use normal chemicals for cleaning, at least not around your bird. I recommend you have a HEPA filter, like an air purifier that's always running. Now, I have mine. It's just like an Beloit. It's just a standard round Beloit HEPA filter. I think it was well under $100. And the filters do last for like 6 months. They're pretty nice. Now, even though I have my windows open and air blowing, I use it a lot for when I'm doing something that does have chemicals in it, or I'm running a 3D printer, or if I'm painting something, or just even when I'm cleaning or something and there is, small odor, I turn on the HEPA filter and I move it nearby, and it works really well. So it's something to have just to be safe, help keep the air clean and stuff. But obviously, they don't work if your window's open and you're moving air through, area, but they can help pull things out of the air if you put it nearby. And I think that's about it for part 1. There's still a lot that I haven't covered, but I figure I'd stop and do this one first. and I wanted to get it over with because I'm probably going to be not doing videos for a few days, as I'm going to be doing some work here and installing some acoustic paneling and stuff, and trying to set up a little bit better of a studio. So that's about it. Anyways, have a good day.